Through time, marketing mediums have evolved significantly, from the town crier to the influencer, and each significant leap, like print, television, or internet, has empowered brands to expand their reach beyond geographical boundaries quickly and efficiently. One of the largest pivot points in recent history has been the rise of creators, starting with the written blogs, followed by the rise of video content, social media platforms, and most recently, short form video content. The creator has become an integral part of self marketing and brand marketing. So much so that the term creator economy was coined, and platforms started to invest in ways for creators to monetize their content directly. Today, the creator economy is considered to be a $100 billion plus economy with over 50 million global creators in 2023. Creators have meaningfully changed the landscape of marketing because they foster more personal connections between brands and their consumers. The creator economy contributes to a $1 trillion global marketing industry. At Meta, we continue to invest in evolving our cross platform marketing tools to serve brands, businesses, and creators just alike as their worlds start to meld together. Hi, everyone. I'm Rambhia, and I can't wait to share one such product evolution story with you. We'll start with an intro to the various marketing products at Meta and look at signals that might indicate it's time to evolve them. I'll share how we reimagined our core UX for Meta Business Suite to support creators' needs through grounding principles, as well as a really compelling adaptation to our experimentation processes that de-risked and accelerated our launch. After that, I'm so excited to have Ramu, my colleague, join us and walk you through a technical deep dive on how we scaled our content retrieval and content search systems to significantly increase throughput. At Meta, our mission is to give people the power to build community and bring the world closer together. We build technologies and products that help people connect both personally and professionally. We build cross-platform tools to empower businesses and brands to successfully manage their marketing needs. As marketing evolved and with the advent of the creator economy, we recognize that some of these tools will serve better as a single offering. As a result, after moving Pages Manager to MBS, we also embarked on a 2-year journey across 14 business teams to move our Creator Studio tools and users over to Meta Business Suite. How do you know if expanding your product's target audience to converge 2 products or 2 tech stacks is the right thing for your company? And more importantly, when do you take it on? Migrations are infamous for slowing things down. They have to survive reorgs and trade-offs for new development. However, migrations are an indispensable part of software development. You go slow to go fast. The key is knowing when and how to execute them. There are different signals that indicate it might be time to migrate one product or platform to the other. Users are confused. The development effort is almost twice for the company. Both products have a converging vision. The landscape has evolved. The technology has evolved. Any of these or a combination of these could be the reason. When we looked at Meta Business Suite and Creator Studio side by side, we realized that changing landscapes had resulted in businesses and creators having similar tooling needs. Successful creators were no different than brands or businesses, and at the same time, brands and businesses had started to rely on creators to accelerate their marketing. What started as product solutions for 2 very distinct user profiles was very quickly converging in vision and tooling needs. There were still some differences that we would need to account for, though. For example, creators will often publish several pieces of content in a day, where businesses will publish no more than a few times a week. Creators need in-depth comparative metrics to optimize their video content, where businesses would find that overwhelming. And creators often have 10 to 100x times the content that is published than businesses, which puts a load on content search and retrieval systems. Here is a glance at some of the tools that were offered in both product lines. As you can see, some are common, like the creation tools, the dashboards, the navigation menus, and some were unique, like the planner, the inbox, or the monetization tools. The heart of the UX problem was converging our UX tools effectively such that they served the full spectrum of our user base seamlessly and cohesively. The success of these experiences was critical to the success of the migration. For this deep dive, I will dive into how we integrated the creation tools experiences from Creator Studio into Meta Business Suite. On the left is our old content composer in Meta Business Suite, and on the right is the old content composer in Creator Studio. The biggest difference off the bat was that CS Composer had a three-step creation process: create, optimize, publish. We took the opportunity to up-level both composer experiences. We went full screen, went to pane, introduced stage tooling such that you wouldn't see the option to optimize until you had uploaded a video. Our composer launch was incredibly successful. We went from start to finish in a single half despite 3 teams being involved in all of the conversations and design decisions, and we shipped on our very first iteration based on the experimentation results. There were 3 pillars to our framework. 1, align on the principles. Don't rush through the step. 2, invest in user validation at every possible stage of your development. And 3, account for long-term evolution every step of the way. We invested a disproportionate amount of time identifying and aligning on our key design principles upfront. All cross-functional partners across teams were involved, and in this process were bought in. We used them on multiple occasions as the final arbiter. We aligned on 3: simple, scalable, and smooth. Here's how they took effect. To simplify our experience, we switched to a carded layout. Every feature became a standalone card arranged vertically with simple scroll. This vastly increased readability of the composer and made it simple to follow. We pulled all optional functionality into icon-based entry points. This allowed to significantly scale our UI to support multiple integrated added functionalities while also keeping the composer from becoming dense with information and options. The key with our smoothness principle was building an experience that is fast, reliable, and seamless. For example, we introduced client-side rendering of previews, which replaced slow reloads and brought the preview in sync with user changes right away. Constant iterative and intentional user validation is paramount to a major UX redesign like this one. We did everything from early moderated UXR studies to unmoderated feedback loops as we designed our early wireframes. As we built our code, we did moderated alpha rollouts to get early feedback, followed by a comprehensive experimentation plan to validate our launch at scale. One of the most impactful evolutions we made to our experiment process was to introduce micro-validation experiments. With this approach, we ran 4 parallel experiments. One included the entire design update for top-level impact measurements. And there were 3 parallel ones that we ran to analyze and evaluate a few hotspots that we had identified through past learnings and user feedback. By doing this, when the experiments ran, we were able to validate if a pre-identified hotspot was a root cause or not. The change in our process greatly accelerated our ship timelines since we had all the learnings at the same time. To account for long term, you really want to update processes so that development teams, including your partner integration teams, account for all users, both old and new. Remember, not all of them know you just expanded to a brand new target audience. Second, update your team metrics and goals. Identify conflicting ones and make sure you resolve them. Third, look back assessments are highly valuable to see the long-term impact of your changes. Sometimes these are great. Sometimes you may catch an unexpected downward trend. To recap, when scaling your core UX to new audiences, there are 3 things we recommend you keep in mind. First, align on principles. Don't shortchange this step. Use it consistently to make alignment sticky. Second, invest in user validation at every possible stage. This will pay off dividends. And third, keep your eyes on the North Star. account for the long-term evolution every step of the way. With this, I'm going to hand it off to Ramu to talk to you about a technical deep dive on how we scaled our engineering systems.
Thanks, Ami. With the evolution of social media marketing and the rise of creators economy, we have heavily invested into tools that allow creators and brands to connect with each other and their audience. Hello, everyone. I'm Ramu Bachala. I'm a software engineer on the Meta Business Suite team here at Meta. I've been working on the creator migration for the past couple of years to build new tooling and transform existing tooling to support creators. In today's talk, we will go over first the importance of targeting all audience types, then technical challenges we faced and the trade-offs we had to make. And lastly, we will talk about some key takeaways from our experience, which hopefully can help you in your large-scale migration projects. Building new tooling and validating those tools on all audience types is paramount for a successful migration. We needed to be cognizant that we are building a new experience that either should meet or beat the current experience of the migrating creators. We classified our target users into high-risk and low-risk cohorts. High-risk cohorts are lower in numbers but are power users. Low-risk cohorts are higher in numbers but doesn't fully stress test the system. For a migration, we could start with the low-risk cohorts, validate the changes, uncover any functionality gaps in the product, and move to higher value cohorts. But one downside to focusing only on less risky cohorts is not able to validate the performance gaps. To address this, early user research and alpha testing into high-risk cohort types helped us identify some of these blind spots beforehand. During our alpha testing, we encountered many challenges. And given the short time we have today, let's talk about a couple of these things, especially related to content retrieval and content search. As we better understood the behavioral patterns of creators during our user research and alpha testing, we recognized the need to uplevel our content retrieval and content search capabilities to handle up to 100 times our current capacity. Retrieving or searching content for creators may pose problems if the data pipeline puts increased stress on the backend systems. For example, requests may time out if the data is not written within a specific period of time. Several processes can die if the memory limits are exceeded. Access to right tooling to capture and analyze stack traces when these errors happen is pretty important. And we can use these tools to identify patterns in the stack traces and quickly zoom in on the root cause. Let's look at some sample code on how our backend process would fetch data for a creator. Here we make some calls to underlying platform libraries to load metric information and filter results based on the search criteria provided by the user. We knew this metric data can be very complex and can be multi-level deep with references into other metric-related data. When we observed slowness in response time and server errors, we realized it's important to dig into these abstractions to fully understand how the data is fetched or filtered. We took a question everything approach to understand the problem. Now let's dig into our load metrics call. We retrieved metric info objects if they didn't exist in the cache, cached them for later use, did some computation on the metric info objects using the attributes, and returned the metric results. We observed with increased load from creators, we could potentially cache millions of metric info objects, and this could result in memory exceptions or timeouts. We needed a way to address this problem. Let's talk about some options. When we retrieve content, we could limit the number of assets selected by the user, or we could limit the number of artifacts pulled for each asset. And finally, we could limit the amount of information that we are pulling from the database for each artifact. Each of the options have both pros and cons. For option 1, this doesn't provide a good end user experience if they cannot see all their content in one request and they need to make multiple requests. For option 2, this does not represent an accurate state of the system because we are only using partial number of their artifacts. For option 3, we realized it's a good balance because it doesn't sacrifice the accuracy of the system nor it takes away the flexibility for the end user. But it does require some changes to show how we load the metric objects and caching. With option 3, we extended the functionality of the underlying load metrics abstraction to return the metric-specific attributes rather than fetching the objects for caching. We then perform the needed computation, avoiding the caching layer and reducing stress on the backend systems. Let's talk about another challenge we faced. This is related to our content search. This is another capability where we observed slowness and error spike for some power users during our early alpha testing. Here is a sample code for our filter results search. Once we fetched all the posts and after running privacy checks, we ran filtering logic on the posts using the post title. Since the filtering was done after running expensive privacy checks, this was not efficient. Most of the records will be thrown away if their title content doesn't match the keywords provided by the user. We can improve. Let's see how we handled it. We could parallelize the search into batches on multiple nodes. Each node will search a subset of the records. Eventually, all the results from the nodes are merged and returned back to the user. Another option is we could move the search closer to where the data is. If we go with option 1, this involves significant changes to our architecture and will increase the complexity significantly, and it will also delay our migration timelines. Let's talk about option 2. We can leverage our database adapters to contain these changes, but multiple data adapters need to change. But what if we could limit the changes to specific data adapters that are running hot, and later iterate over to other database adapters? Again, it's about trade-offs between meeting migration timelines versus better architecture and easier long-term maintenance. We discussed pros and cons and identified plans to unblock migration and for long-term scalability and easier maintenance. To unblock migration, we chose to modify our search module to selectively offload search to specialized data adapters that filter results at the database layer. For longer term, we identified a plan to create normalized data types with support for faster search capabilities. Here are some key takeaways. First, planning and designing your systems for all audience types during initial stages of the migration is key. User research into high-risk audiences is important to understand different use cases. Second, abstraction in platform calls can hide important details to fix performance issues. Take a question everything approach, starting with your stack trace. Understand the trade-offs and identify pros and cons to come up with short-term and long-term plans. Remember, new changes may lead to more blind spots or increased complexity. It's important to run experiments and socialize your changes across your organization. To wrap up, we learned a lot from our migration, and hopefully you learned something from our experience today. Thanks for your time. Back to Ami for a recap and look ahead.
Thank you, Ramu. Today, we walked you through the evolution of cross-platform marketing tools at Meta with the evolving landscape of creator-led brand marketing. We dove deep into our journey of migrated Creator Studio users to Meta Business Suite. For UX challenges, you want to keep in mind, align on your principles, invest in user validation, and look ahead for the long term. When you are thinking about scaling your engineering systems, you want to remember all the different user behaviors, especially the edge cases. You want to make sure that you're questioning everything in your stack trace and not letting abstraction hide anything away. And then you also want to make sure that you are deeply investigating trade-offs when you're making one-way decisions. What's next for us? We are just getting started. We have a unified platform for creators and businesses to interact with each other and leverage each other's marketing tools as needed. We will continue to invest in those, finish what we started. In addition to that, we will help them stay on track with all the expanding platforms and content formats. And last but not the least, try to give them a better experience with increased personalization of tools. That's our journey. Thank you so much.